now that's kind of turning my attention to it is the relevance with everybody talking with the Russia connection for Trump. I think it's a big one to look into just how early on we knew about stuff like this in the Mueller report and how damning it was. But a lot of us either didn't pay attention, didn't care when it came out, or were so partisan, so biased that we just didn't give a fuck. So one of the things I typically don't do as far as the no aim assist part is I don't go through other people, but I did find just a summation of what was found in this report just for everybody. So we'll go through the table of contents and all this, but remember that the special counsel investigation, so this is the Mueller report, produced 37 indictments, 7 guilty pleas or convictions, and compelling evidence that the president obstructed justice on multiple occasions. Mueller uncovered and referred 14 criminal matters to other components of the Department of Justice. So for the Russia hoax, for all the people that say these things are fake and they never happened, how do you explain the damning evidence that we're going to go through in this report? And if you don't have an explanation for it and you just accept it, fuck you. It's as simple as that. It's kind of silly that we can just sit here and we can ignore stuff. Maybe people just say that none of this stuff mattered. Here's another thing. Just in the summary of this report, Russian interference in the 2016 election was, quote, sweeping and systemic. Just to give you an idea of the range of the problem that they were dealing with. Sweeping and systemic. So what we're going to do, we're going to go back to the report. It's going to be a little dry. It's going to be a little tough to get through. As you can see, 448 pages of the Mueller report. But I think that's one of the reasons why it didn't get a lot of attention. I think people were able to make these quick and easy summaries, and then maybe some of the important stuff got lost along the way. So in order to get some of that important stuff, what we're going to do, or at least what I'm going to do, is I'm going to go through this line by line. Obviously, probably not going to finish it all here today. We got quite a bit else that we're going to get into. So the reports about Trump being an asset, the reports from this gentleman about, them recruiting him, looking into that gentleman, maybe some reactions. We got games on deck as well, because we can always throw that when my attention span gets a little too short. And so we can hop right in to the report on the investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election. Again, if you're wondering why this is important, it's important to me because of how prevalent all the current Russian talks are right now with Trump, just how corrupt he might be, that sort of thing. I think it's important to go back and look at just how early on we knew in the process that these things were coming to a head. And from what I've heard, there is some pretty damning information in here that just went completely overlooked. So here we have our table of contents. It's quite a doozy, as you can see. This is just the table of contents, so we are hitting quite a bit. And from what I've heard, there is these redactions are covering up some stuff, but it shouldn't cover up anything super important. Like there was some stuff that, like secret conversations that Trump had about sensitive matters and stuff like that. Apparently they left those out, but there is still tons of stuff in here that is pretty damning. So as we can see, we got our table of contents, introductory, executive summary, special counsel's investigation, and is part 1, and then part 2, Russian, quote, active measures, unquote, the social media campaign. Whole bunch of that. That is wild. That the social media aspect, I wonder how much this has grown in the last 8 years as they've been allowed to run rampant. Part 3, Russian hacking and dumping operations, of which there are 4 subsequent parts. Part 4 of the entire document, Russian government links and contacts with the Trump campaign. That's going to be really spicy because this is what I heard about. This is what I know about, is that there was communication that went on that wasn't properly disclosed. And I believe even money changed hands that wasn't properly disclosed. When asked about this, I believe people just didn't come forward, didn't snitch, and then they were pardoned for their part in this. So Russia, it's all a hoax until it's not. And then, we just pardon the people that happen to be guilty of crimes. Super convenient. They're innocent until they're proven guilty, and then when they are, by the way, we were JKing, we know they did it, let's give them a pardon. Part 5, prosecution and declination decisions. whole bunch of stuff is going to be redacted through there. And I think I've never read through this report before. This is going to be my first time as well. I wonder if we're going to be able to get some juicy stuff in here, even with all this stuff redacted. But you can see the names of the people that were included in here. We have George Papadopoulos, Michael Flynn, Michael Cohen, Jeff Sessions. HOM, harm to ongoing matter, I guess is why some of these names have been redacted. And then personal privacy for one of the people. Awesome. That is our table of contents. That's what we're going to get through. It doesn't look like we'll be able to finish the whole document today just because I am a slow reader. But if you like what you see and you want to see more, feel free to like, comment, follow, all the good stuff. Help me get up to charity streams. Once I get to a certain point, I can start asking for people to donate to certain charities and stuff like that. And I think it'd be awesome to get behind some causes. So if you do like what you see, anything like that, feel free to join the team, join the squad. We got a hell of a lot of work to do, and we need all hands on deck. So would really appreciate any support. If you don't see us here, you can also check us out on YouTube. If you don't see us on YouTube, we are also on the socials. So Blue Sky and the whole 9 yards are all an option as well. So if you haven't seen us here or you want to see more of us, feel free to go there. We're going to be writing down our notes down here in this bottom right corner, taking a look at chat here. So if you have anything, any questions, feel free to throw them up, and I'll try and take pauses and read those as we go. Awesome. We are right here at the start. Introduction to Volume 1. This report is submitted to the Attorney General pursuant to 28 CFR subsection 600.8C, which states that, quote, at the conclusion of the special counsel's work, he shall provide the Attorney General a confidential report explaining the prosecution and declination decisions the special counsel reached, end quote. The Russian government interfered in the 2016 presidential election in sweeping and systematic fashion. Evidence of Russian government operations began to surface in mid-2016. In June, the Democratic National Committee and its cyber response team publicly announced that Russian hackers had compromised its computer network. Releases of hacked materials, hacks that public reporting soon attributed to the Russian government, began that same month. Additional releases followed in July through the organization WikiLeaks, with further releases in October and November. What a fucking scumbag this motherfucker is. What is it? Assange? Sorry. Moving on. In late July 2016, soon after WikiLeaks' first release of stolen documents, a foreign government contacted the FBI about a May 2016 encounter with Trump campaign foreign policy advisor George Papadopoulos. Papadopoulos had suggested to a representative of that foreign government that the Trump campaign had received indications from the Russian government that it could assist the campaign through the anonymous release of information damaging to Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton. That information prompted the FBI on July 31st, 2016, to open an investigation into whether individuals associated with the Trump campaign were coordinating with the Russian government in its interference activities. That fall, two federal agencies jointly announced that the Russian government, quote, directed recent compromises of emails from U.S. persons and institutions, including U.S. political organizations, end quote, and, quote, these thefts and disclosures are intended to interfere with the U.S. election process, end quote. After the election, in late December 2016, the United States imposed sanctions on Russia for having interfered in the election. By early 2017, several congressional committees were examining Russia's interference in the election. Within the executive branch, these investigatory efforts, ultimately led to the May 2017 appointment of Special Counsel Robert S. Mueller III. The order appointing the special counsel authorized him to investigate, quote, the Russian government's efforts to interfere in the 2016 presidential election, end quote, including any links or coordination between the Russian government and individuals associated with the Trump campaign. As set forth in detail in this report, the special counsel's investigation established that Russia interfered in the 2016 presidential election principally through two operations. First, A Russian entity carried out a social media campaign that favored president candidate Donald J. Trump and disparaged presidential candidate Hillary Clinton. Second, a Russian intelligence service conducted computer intrusion operations against entities, employees, and volunteers working on the Clinton campaign and then released stolen documents. The investigation also identified numerous links between the Russian government and the Trump campaign. Although the investigation established that the Russian government perceived it would benefit from a Trump presidency and worked to secure that outcome, and that the campaign expected it would benefit electorally from information stolen and released through Russian efforts, the investigation did not establish that the members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities. Below, we describe the evidentiary considerations underpinning statements that the results of our investigation and the special counsel's charging decisions about the results of our investigation and the special counsel's charging decisions. And we then provide an overview of the 2 volumes of our report. The report describes actions and events that the special counsel's office found to be supported by the evidence collected in our investigation. In some instances, the report points out the absence of evidence or conflicts in the evidence about a particular fact or event. In other instances, when substantial, credible evidence enabled the office to reach a conclusion with confidence. The report states that the investigation established that certain actions or certain events occurred. A statement that the investigation did not establish particular facts does not mean there was no evidence of those facts. In evaluating whether evidence about collective action of multiple individuals constituted a crime, we applied the framework of conspiracy law, not the concept of, quote, collusion, end quote. In doing so, the office recognized that the word, quote, collude, end quote, was used in communications with the acting attorney general confirming certain aspects of the investigation scope, and that the term has frequently been invoked in public reporting about the investigation. But collusion is not a specific offense or theory of liability found in the United States Code, nor is it a term of art in federal criminal law. For those reasons, the office's focus in analyzing questions of joint criminal liability was on conspiracy as defined in federal law. In connection with that analysis, we addressed the factual question whether members of the Trump campaign, quote, coordinated, end quote, a term that appears in the appointment order with Russian election interference activities. Like collusion, quote, coordination, end quote, does not have a settled definition in federal criminal law. We understood coordination to require an agreement, tactic, or express between the Trump campaign and the Russian government on election interference. That requires more than 2 parties taking actions that were informed by or responsive to the other's actions or interests. We applied the term coordination in that sense when stating in the report that the investigation did not establish that the Trump campaign coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities. So just kind of limiting the scope of what they're saying here. So we are saying very certainly that certain things did happen, but we had evidence of other things we are not stating because there might have been some other evidence. And then down here, this coordinated part is in a sly way addressing the, Russia, collusion, witch hunt, all that stuff. This isn't what we're charging for. We're looking at conspiracy, and we don't think that you did this. This, to me, reading stuff like this is how you know that they're doing things even-handedly. Anybody can write anything on a piece of paper, but especially if they follow through with the correct practices, it seems like they're not going out of their way to damn you. It seems like they're doing everything that they could to charge you properly. But who am I? I'm just some lib, right? Moving on. The report on our investigation consists of 2 volumes. Volume 1 describes the factual results of the special counsel's investigation of Russia's interference in the 2016 presidential election and its interactions with the Trump campaign. Section 1 describes the scope of the investigation. Sections 2 and 3 describe the principal ways Russia interfered in the 2016 presidential election. Section 4 describes links between the Russian government and individuals associated with the Trump campaign. Section 5 sets forth the special counsel's charging decisions. Volume 2 addresses the president's actions towards the FBI's investigation into Russia's interference in the 2016 presidential election and related matters, and his actions toward the special counsel's investigation. Volume 2 separately states its framework and its considerations that guided that investigation. So I'll be reading two separate documents in here in the Mueller Report. Executive Summary to Volume 1. Actually, give me 1 second. I'm going to take a brief little be right back ski, and I'm just going to grab a drink real quick. Be right back. Don't go nowhere. We got hold music for you. I'm just kidding. And we are back in action. Hopping right back in on this sunny Saturday. All right, there we go. We're going to just make sure. Whoops. I hate when it shrinks stuff. Yeah. So it just took away one of those buttons. You see that? That deactivate button, that's what I want to hit. So it just disappears. Oh, why would he need that? Because there's space for it right fucking here. You see that there's plenty of space for a deactivate button right here? So it's like, oh, why isn't the button there? Oh, there it is. It pops into existence. Crazy. Be right back. Bam. And that should be in focus. Oh, sometimes this technology stuff, you gotta love it. Whoa, close the wrong thing. Boom. Awesome. Executive summary to Volume 1. But this time, I have water. Russian social media campaign. The Internet Research Agency, the IRA, carried out the earliest Russian interference operations identified by the investigation. A social media campaign designed to provoke and amplify political and social discord in the United States. The IRA was based in St. Petersburg, Russia, and received funding from Russian oligarch Yevgeny Prigozhin. That's as close as we're getting. And companies he controlled. Prigozhin is widely reported to have ties to Russian President Vladimir Putin. Something redacted for harm to an ongoing matter. In mid-2014, the IRA sent employees to the United States on an intelligence gathering mission with instructions, harm to an ongoing matter redacted. Moving on. The IRA later used social media accounts and interest groups to sow discord in the U.S. political system through what it termed, quote, information warfare, end quote. The campaign evolved from a generalized program designed in 2014 and 2015 to undermine the U.S. electoral system to a targeted operation that by early 2016 favored candidate Trump and disparaged candidate Clinton. The IRA's operation also included the purchase of political advertisements on social media in the names of U.S. persons and entities, as well as staging political rallies inside the United States. To organize, isn't that crazy? Russia organizing stuff here. Like, it's just, it's so fucking goofy to think about. To organize those rallies, IRA employees posed as U.S. grassroots entities and persons and made contact with Trump supporters and Trump campaign officials in the United States. The investigation did not identify evidence that any U.S. persons conspired or coordinated with the IRA. Section 2 of this report details the office's investigation of the Russian social media campaign. Russian hacking operations. At the same time that the IRA operation began to focus on supporting candidate Trump in early 2016, the Russian government employed a second form of interference: cyber intrusions, aka hacking, and releases of hacked materials damaging to the Clinton campaign. The Russian intelligence service, known as the Main Intelligence Directorate, I think that's what that is. The Russian intelligence service, known as the Main Intelligence Directorate of the General Staff of the Russian Army, the GRU, carried out these operations. So I think the Main Intelligence Directorate is the GRU. In March 2016, the GRU began hacking the email accounts of the Clinton campaign volunteers and employees, including campaign chairman John Podesta. In April 2016, the GRU hacked into the computer networks of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, the DCCC, and the Democratic National Committee, the DNC. The GRU stole hundreds of thousands of documents from the compromised email accounts and networks. Around the time that the DNC announced in mid-June 2016 the Russian government's role in hacking its network, the GRU began disseminating stolen materials through the fictitious online personas, quote, DC Leaks, end quote, and, quote, Guccifer 2.0, end quote. The GRU later released additional materials through the organization WikiLeaks. God fucking damn it. Like, what a trash person. And remember, from what I remember of the WikiLeaks situation, Julian Assange was this guy who was like dedicated to, we got to expose corruption. We got to expose corruption. Found corruption, or what he considered to be corruption, this like damaging information. Now we know, given to him, like hacked through the Russians, given to him specifically so it could damage Democrats, and he only came forward. I think he had said that he had found stuff on both sides, but he only is willing to leak stuff on one side because they're the ones that are really the bad ones. So let me find, I found malfeasance on both sides. I think this one side is bad. Let me go looking. I found bad on both sides. Let me only report on one because, whatever. These people just aren't honest people. The presidential campaign of Donald J. Trump, also known as, quote, Trump campaign, end quote, or, quote, campaign, end quote, showed interest in WikiLeaks' releases of documents and welcomed their potential to damage candidate Clinton. Beginning in June 2016, redacted, forecast to senior campaign officials that WikiLeaks would release information damaging to candidate Clinton. So I wonder who that is. That might be one of those people that's not named there in the start that we were talking about. WikiLeaks' first release came in July 2016. Around that same time, candidate Trump announced that he hoped Russia would recover emails described as missing from a private server used by Clinton when she was Secretary of State. He later said that he was speaking sarcastically. Bunch of stuff redacted there. Gotta love to see it. WikiLeaks began releasing Podesta's stolen emails on October 7th, 2016, less than an hour after a U.S. media outlet released video considered damaging to candidate Trump. Section 3 of this report details the office's investigation into the Russia hacking operations, as well as other efforts by Trump campaign supporters to obtain Clinton-related emails. Russian contacts with the campaign. The social media campaign and the GRU hacking operations coincided with a series of contacts between Trump campaign officials and individuals with ties to the Russian government. The office investigated whether those contacts reflected or resulted in the campaign conspiring or coordinating with Russia in its election interference activities. Although the investigation established that the Russian government perceived it would benefit from a Trump presidency and worked to secure that outcome, and that the campaign expected it would benefit electorally from information stolen and released through Russian efforts, the investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities. Seems like we're walking a fine line here. I wonder what we're going to discover. Because they didn't have that, but then they were able to get indictments, So when you hear that, remember what we have about the indictments, the credible indictments that came from this. And the guilty pleas, The Russian contacts consisted of business connections, offers of assistance to the campaign, invitations for candidate Trump and Putin to meet in person, invitations for campaign officials and representatives of the Russian government to meet, and policy positions seeking improved U.S.-Russian relations. Section 4 of this report details the contacts between Russia and the Trump campaign during the campaign and transition periods, the most salient of which are summarized below in chronological order. So the most salient contacts are 2015. Some of the earliest contacts were made in connection with a Trump Organization real estate project in Russia known as Trump Tower Moscow. Candidate Trump signed a letter of intent for Trump Tower Moscow by November 2015, and in January 2016, Trump Organization executive Michael Cohen emailed and spoke about the project with the Office of Russian Government Press Secretary Dmitry Peskov. The Trump Organization pursued the project through at least June 2016, including by considering travel to Russia by Cohen and candidate Trump. In spring of 2016, Campaign Foreign Policy Advisor George Papadopoulos made early contact with Joseph Mifsud, a London-based professor who had connections to Russia and traveled to Moscow in April 2016. By the way, let it never be said about me, like when they talk about me ever, fuck that. I would hate that. Not that I'm defending Joseph Mifsud at all, but like if that's how they know me. Oh, Chris is a streamer, streams on his computer, also has connections with Russia. Yeah, let that never be fucking said about me. Fuck those Ruskies. Fuck that shit. That's wild. I will know Russian people. I will never have connections with Russia. Fucking crazy thing to have said about you, especially if it's true, if you earn that. Immediately upon his return to London from that trip, Mifsud told Papadopoulos that the Russian government had, quote, dirt, end quote, on Hillary Clinton in the form of thousands of emails. 1 week later, in the first week of May 2016, Papadopoulos suggested to a representative of a foreign government that the Trump campaign had received indications from the Russian government that it could assist the campaign through the anonymous release of information damaging to candidate Clinton. Throughout that period of time and for several months thereafter, Papadopoulos worked with Mifsud and two Russian nationals to arrange a meeting between the campaign and the Russian government. No meeting took place that they know of. I don't know. They feel confident in putting that in, but who knows? It all looks a lot more suspect looking back now, doesn't it? Summer of 2016. Russian outreach to the Trump campaign continued into the summer of 2016 as candidate Trump was becoming the presumptive Republican nominee for president. On June 9th, 2016, for example, a Russian lawyer met with senior Trump campaign officials Donald Trump Jr., Jared Kushner, and campaign chairman Paul Manafort to deliver what the email proposing the meeting had described as, quote, official documents and information that would incriminate Hillary, end quote. The materials were offered to Trump Jr. as, quote, part of Russia and its government's support for Mr. Trump, end quote. The written communications setting up the meeting showed that the campaign anticipated receiving information from Russia that could assist candidate Trump's electoral prospects, but the Russian lawyer's presentation did not provide such information. Days after the June 9th meeting on June 14th, 2016, a cybersecurity firm and the DNC announced that Russian government hackers had infiltrated the DNC and obtained access to opposition research on candidate Trump, among other documents. In July 2016, Campaign Foreign Policy Advisor Carter Page traveled in his personal capacity to Moscow and gave the keynote address at the New Economic School. Page had lived and worked in Russia between 2003 and 2007. After returning to the United States, Page became acquainted with at least 2 Russian intelligence officers, one of whom was later charged in 2015 with conspiracy to act as an unregistered agent of Russia. Page's July 2016 trip to Moscow and his advocacy for pro-Russian foreign policy drew media attention. The campaign then distanced itself from Page and, by late September 2016, removed him from the campaign. July 2016 was also the month WikiLeaks first released emails stolen by the GRU from the DNC. On July 22, 2016, WikiLeaks posted thousands of internal DNC documents revealing information about the Clinton campaign. Within days, there was public reporting that U.S. intelligence agencies had, quote, high confidence, end quote, that the Russian government was behind the theft of emails and documents from the DNC. And within a week of the release, a foreign government informed the FBI about its May 2016 interaction with Papadopoulos and his statement that the Russian government could assist the Trump campaign. On July 31st, 2016, based on the foreign government reporting, the FBI opened an investigation into potential coordination between the Russian government and individuals associated with the Trump campaign. Separately, on August 2nd, 2016, Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort met in New York City with his longtime business associate, Konstantin Kilimnik, who the FBI assesses to have ties to Russian intelligence. Kilimnik, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I also don't care, requested the meeting to deliver in person a peace plan for Ukraine that Paul Manafort acknowledged to the special counsel's office was a, quote, backdoor, end quote, way for Russia to control part of eastern Ukraine. Both men believed the plan would require candidate Trump's assent to succeed, were he to be elected president. Jesus Christ, just like how much do we know? And then like back in 2016, we knew that they were working on a backdoor way to control, like, it's just so sad when you see it all like laid out. It's literally like the end of the world laid out in front of you, and like oh, hey, you can literally read how they did this. Like, this is what they're going to look back at and say like, oh shit, like we had proof that these people were fucking compromised. They also discussed the status of the Trump campaign and Manafort's strategy for winning Democratic votes in Midwestern states. Months before that meeting, Manafort had caused internal polling data to be shared with Kilimnik, and the sharing continued for some period of time after their August meeting. Fall 2016. On October 7th, 2016, the media released video of candidate Trump speaking in graphic terms about women years earlier, which was considered damaging to his candidacy. Less than an hour later, WikiLeaks made its second release, thousands of John Podesta's emails that had been stolen by the GRU in late March 2016. The FBI and other U.S. government institutions were at the time continuing their investigation of suspected Russian government efforts to interfere in the presidential election. That same day, October 7th, the Department of Homeland Security and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence issued a joint public statement, quote, that the Russian government directed the recent compromises of emails from U.S. persons and institutions, including from U.S. political organizations, end quote. Those, quote, thefts, end quote, and the, quote, disclosures, end quote, of the hacked materials through online platforms such as WikiLeaks, the statement continued, quote, are intended to interfere with the U.S. election process, end quote. Man, if even if all we get at the end of this is just so people can understand the extent to which our elections are under attack, is just, even that would be enough, because it really does feel crazy. They are tapping into our politicians, deciding who gets what when, moving things back. This is your shadow government. Like, there is no deep state. There is no, none of that shit is real. All that shit is garbage. But the one deep state that there probably is, hey, there are other states, there are other governments, and it looks like our current president is willing to work with them to undermine our electoral process. I know this doesn't come to that conclusion directly, but my goodness, doesn't it seem like that? Like, That's the deep state. This is more evidence to point to wrongdoing than you've ever had for anything. The people that talk about Joe Biden or Kamala or the Biden crime, whatever it may be. This is more evidence that you've ever had for any of that. But you jump so hard on that and you just refuse to pay attention to this. It's just insane to me. I don't understand it. I mean, I do. You're in a cult, but like, come on, wake up. Post 2016 election. Immediately after the November 8th election, Russian government officials and prominent Russian businessmen began trying to make inroads into the new administration. The most senior levels of the Russian government encouraged these efforts. The Russian embassy made contact hours after the election to congratulate the president-elect and to arrange a call with President Putin. Several Russian businessmen picked up the effort from there. Kirill Dmitriev, I don't fucking know, Kirill, the chief executive officer of Russia's Sovereign Wealth Fund, was among the Russians who tried to make contact with the incoming administration. In early December, a business associate steered Dmitriev, I don't know if I'm saying that right, to Eric Prince, a supporter of the Trump campaign and an associate of senior Trump advisor Steve Bannon. Dmitriev and Prince later met face-to-face in January 2017 in the I'm not sure, so we gonna see.
Seychelles.
Huh, that's pretty phonetic. Dmitriev and Prince later met face-to-face in January 2017 in the Seychelles and discussed U.S.-Russia relations. During the same period, another business associate introduced Dmitriev to a friend of Jared Kushner who had not served on the campaign or the transition team. Dmitriev and Kushner's friend collaborated on a short written reconciliation plan for the United States and Russia, which Dmitriev implied had been cleared through Putin. The friend gave that proposal to Kushner before the inauguration, and Kushner later gave copies to Bannon and incoming Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. On December 29, 2016, then President Obama imposed sanctions on Russia for having interfered in the election. Incoming National Security Advisor Michael Flynn called Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak and asked Russia not to escalate the situation in response to the sanctions. The following day, Putin announced that Russia would not take retaliatory measures in response to the sanctions at that time. Hours later, President-elect Trump tweeted, quote, "Great move on delay by Vladimir Putin," end quote. The next day, on December 31st, 2016, Kislyak called Flynn and told him the request had been received at the highest levels and Russia had chosen not to retaliate as a result of Flynn's request. Like, this is your deep state. Just so you know, like, this would be more than enough. That right there. Like, I know we haven't taken much down, but just so you know, like, this would be more than enough for the other side to damn us forever. Like, oh yeah, you worked with them, and then there was that level of coordination. Oh, they called you back. Russia called you back with a thank you, with like a, oh yeah, we followed your request to the letter. Appreciate it. This would never fly. This was way more evidence than you ever had for January 6th, like the actual January 6th. Like, insane to me. On January 6th, funnily enough, 2017, members of the intelligence community briefed President-elect Trump on a joint assessment drafted and coordinated among the Central Intelligence Agency, FBI, and National Security Agency. Why did it just do FBI? That's a really weird one there. I'm going to take a second to talk about what the fuck is that? Who wrote that? Who made that decision? Not go CIA and go Central Intelligence Agency, go FBI, not go Federal Bureau of Investigation, and then go back to National Security Agency. Is the FBI that much more popular than these ones? Am I living in a bubble? Somebody tell me, am I living in a bubble? Because I would think you would do like CIA, FBI, and the National Security Agency. Or like CIA, FBI, NSA. Or like, Central Intelligence Agency, Federal Bureau of Investigation, and this is a super weird way to do this, but maybe I'm crazy. We're going to start this over just because I fucked it all up. On January 6, 2017, members of the intelligence community briefed President-elect Trump on a joint assessment drafted and coordinated among the CIA, FBI, and NSA that concluded with high confidence that Russia had intervened in the election through a variety of means to assist Trump's candidacy and harm Clinton's. A declassified version of the assessment was publicly released that same day. I imagine them telling Trump, you come into a room and you're like, hey, this is a crazy thing. We kind of have this proof that, Russia came in and they, were clearly trying to meddle in the election. It was in your favor, but they were clearly trying to meddle in the election. And all Trump hearing the whole time is just man, so you're saying Russia likes me? You're saying they think I'm cool? Fuck me, dude. It's just so oh, hey, the NSA, the FBI, the CIA, we're all coming in here. We're all telling you, hey, this is serious. They had a really big effect in the election. They were able to time their leaks in order to affect our election out and how people felt. And he's like, yeah, but it was for me, right? And it's like, no, you don't understand. You're already president. No one's trying to change that. We get that. You're president, but it's just probably something you should be aware of. And he's just like, so you're saying they like me, right? God fucking damn it. So many fucking stupid fucking things to get us here. Between mid-January 2017 and early February 2017, 3 congressional committees, the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, HPSCI, the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, SSCI, and the Senate Judiciary Committee, the SJC, announced that they would conduct inquiries or had already been conducting inquiries into Russian interference in the election. Then FBI Director James Comey later confirmed to Congress the existence of the FBI's investigation into Russian interference that had begun before the election. On March 20th, 2017, in open session testimony before HPSCI, Comey stated, I guess this is a quote, I don't see quotation marks, but I'm going to say quote, I have been authorized by the Department of Justice to confirm that the FBI, as part of our counterintelligence mission, is investigating the Russian government's effort to interfere in the 2016 presidential election, and that includes investigating the nature of any links between individuals associated with the Trump campaign and the Russian government, and whether there was any coordination between the campaign and Russia's efforts. As with any counterintelligence investigation, this will also include an assessment of whether any crimes were committed, which is just natural. This, looking back at it now, where a lot of this stuff doesn't matter because none of this went anywhere or did anything real, none of it matters. We all broke all the rules. It's interesting looking back on it now. This is what you would expect. Your FBI should absolutely look into this. Tell me if the same shit came out about Joe Biden, that Russia was timing their shit or Hillary Clinton, let's not even change it. If it was totally switched and we found out that Russia was working in tandem with Hillary Clinton, or at least timing their stuff to help Hillary Clinton, yes, I would want an investigation into Hillary Clinton to see if she had anything to fucking do with it. That is so natural. Why do we then go after this as some witch hunt or, smear campaign when it's not? It's just trying to get to the truth. I know it doesn't feel good when your side gets investigated, but also doesn't feel good when Russia controls our fucking elections. Do you not understand that? I hate that. And you can just delay everything towards an election. Then you're going after me during an election. It's there's so much defeating bullshit. These are the rules that we have to think about. When we rewrite the rules, these are the things that we have to consider. The investigation continued under then-Director Comey for the next 7 weeks until May 9th, 2017, when President Trump fired Comey as FBI Director, an action which is analyzed in Volume 2 of the report. On May 17, 2017, Acting Attorney General Rod Rosenstein appointed the special counsel and authorized him to conduct the investigation that Comey had confirmed in his congressional testimony, as well as matters arising directly from the investigation and any other matters within the scope of 28 CFR subsection 600.4a, which generally covers efforts to interfere with or obstruct the investigation. President Trump reacted negatively to the special counsel's appointment. He told advisors that it was the end of his presidency, sought to have, holy shit, he said that? Fuck me running. Don't investigate this. It'll be the end of my presidency. Holy shit. He told his advisors that it would be the end of his presidency, sought to have Attorney General Jeff Sessions unrecused from the Russia investigation and to have the special counsel removed, and engaged in efforts to curtail the special counsel's investigation and prevent the disclosure of evidence to it, including through public and private contacts with potential witnesses. Those and related actions are described and analyzed in Volume 2 of the report. It's almost like he showed us his ass. It's almost like he showed us exactly who he fucking was. The special counsel's charging decisions. In reaching the charging decisions described in Volume 1 of the report, the office determined whether the conduct it found amounted to a violation of federal criminal law chargeable under the principles of federal prosecution. See Justice Manual, subsection 9-27.000, 2018. The standard set forth in the Justice Manual is whether the conduct constitutes a crime. If so, whether admissible evidence would probably be sufficient to obtain and sustain a conviction, and whether prosecution would serve a substantial federal interest that could not be adequately served by prosecution elsewhere or through non-criminal alternatives. See Justice Manual. Section 5 of the report provides detailed explanation of the office's charging decisions, which contain three main components. First, the office determined that Russia's two principal interference operations in the 2016 U.S. presidential election, the social media campaign and the hacking and dumping operations, violated U.S. criminal law. Many of the individuals and entities involved in the social media campaign have been charged with participating in a conspiracy to defraud the United States by undermining through deceptive acts the work of federal agencies charged with regulating foreign influence in U.S. elections, as well as related counts of identity theft. See United States v. IRA. Separately, Russian intelligence officers who carried out the hacking into Democratic Party computers and personal email accounts of individuals affiliated with the Clinton campaign conspired to violate, among other federal laws, the federal computer intrusion statute, and they have been so charged. See United States v. Neteshko. So I guess that's them charging the hackers in Russia, but doesn't really do anything. As far as I know, Russia's never going to extradite or anything like that. We're throwing bullshit back and forth. Second, while the investigation identified numerous links between individuals with ties to the Russian government and individuals associated with the Trump campaign, the evidence was not sufficient to support criminal charges. Among other things, the evidence was not sufficient to charge any campaign officials as an unregistered agent of the Russian government or other Russian principal. And our evidence about the June 9th, 2016 meeting and WikiLeaks releases of hacked materials was not sufficient to charge a criminal campaign finance violation. Further, the evidence was not sufficient to charge that any member of the Trump campaign conspired with representatives of the Russian government to interfere in the 2016 election. Third, the investigation established that several individuals affiliated with the Trump campaign lied to the office and to Congress and about their interactions with Russian-affiliated individuals and related matters. See, this is what gets me. You didn't have like all this evidence, and I know you can't just produce evidence. I'm not saying that, but they were lying about this. Like, this would be enough. Like, not to charge them criminally, but it should be enough. It should be damning enough for these people that clutch their pearls about everything now. This is what you were willing to look over, and I know you didn't read it, and I know you don't care, but this is what you were willing to look over. This shit's fucking wild. Those lies materially impaired the investigation of Russian election interference. Like, think that might have been important? I don't know. Maybe. The office charged some of those lies as violations of the federal false statement statute. Former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn pleaded guilty to lying about his interactions with Russian Ambassador Kislyak during the transition period. George Papadopoulos, a foreign policy advisor during the campaign period, pleaded guilty to lying to investigators about, inter alia, the nature and timing of his interactions with Joseph Mifsud, the professor who told Papadopoulos that the Russians had dirt on candidate Clinton in the form of thousands of emails. Former Trump attorney Michael Cohen pleaded guilty to making false statements to Congress about the Trump Moscow project. So just surrounded by criminals. And then just pardoned it away. And in February 2019, the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia found that Manafort lied to the office and the grand jury concerning his interactions and communications with Konstantin Kilimnik and about Trump campaign polling data and a peace plan for Ukraine. So, boom. Just so you know, this is your guy, and I'm almost certain that Manafort was one of the ones that ended up receiving a pardon. Why? Why did these people get pardons? Because they're loyal to somebody who also commits crimes. So it's not a big deal. When he has you commit crimes for him, you can expect a pardon. Crazy. The office investigated several other events that have been publicly reported to involve potential Russia-related contacts. For example, the investigation established that interactions between Russian Ambassador Kislyak and Trump campaign officials, both at the candidate's April 2016 foreign policy speech in Washington, D.C., and during the week of the Republican National Convention, were brief, public, and non-substantive. And the investigation did not establish that one campaign official's efforts to dilute a portion of the Republican Party platform on providing assistance to Ukraine were undertaken at the behest of candidate Trump or Russia. The investigation also did not establish that a meeting between Kislyak and Sessions in September 2016 at Sessions' Senate office included any more than a passing mention of the presidential campaign. The investigation did not always yield admissible information or testimony or a complete picture of the activities undertaken by subjects of the investigation. Some individuals invoked their Fifth Amendment right against compelled self-incrimination and were not, in the office's judgment, appropriate candidates for grants of immunity. The office limited its pursuit of other witnesses and information, such as information known to attorneys or individuals claiming to be members of the media, in light of internal Department of Justice policies. See the Justice Manual. Some of the information obtained via court processes, moreover, was presumptively covered by legal privilege and was screened by investigators by a filter or, quote, taint, unquote, team. By a filter team? I guess that's a team that goes over the documents. I don't know. Even when individuals testified or agreed to be interviewed, they sometimes provided information that was false or incomplete, leading to some of the false statements charges described above. And the office faced practical limits on its ability to access relevant evidence as well. Numerous witnesses and subjects lived abroad, and documents were held outside of the United States. So they couldn't prove some of this stuff because they just didn't have evidence of it. So some of the stuff may have happened, is how I'm reading to that. Further, the office learned that some of the individuals we interviewed and whose conduct we investigated, including some associated with the Trump campaign, deleted relevant communications or communicated during the relevant period using applications that feature encryption and that do not provide for long-term retention of data or communication records. In such cases, the office was not able to corroborate witness statements, though comparison to contemporaneous communications or fully question witnesses about the statements that appeared inconsistent with other known facts. So some of the things that they weren't able to establish before, these people were literally using encrypted services to go back and forth. There's a reason why they were doing this. You would never accept this for the Hillary fucking emails. You would never accept this for fucking anything. You wouldn't accept it for the Democrats. Why the fuck did you accept it for these people? And what are they doing now? Now that they have more access to criminal behavior, now that they have more leash, are they going to do more or are they going to do less? My bet is they're going to do more. Accordingly, while this report embodies factual and legal determinations that the office believes to be accurate and complete to the greatest extent possible, given these identified gaps, the office cannot rule out the possibility that the unavailable information would shed additional light on or cast in a new light the events described in the report. So they're putting this out because with a little bit more information, say like one Russian fucking hacker having an email from the encrypted, source, or the encrypted messages that they were able to send back and forth, some of those may be damning, but we just don't know because these people were literally, as we did catch them lying, going back and forth, they were using encrypted stuff. So we caught them doing this stuff and they lied. They had to lie about that in order to get around the investigation, but we found that they were using encrypted ways to get around it, and so we weren't able to corroborate certain things. Fucking wild. We're at about an hour in. I'm going to take just a brief break, nothing crazy, about a minute or two, and I'll be right back on to hop into part one here, the special counsel's investigation. Having a good time, having a good Saturday. Like we said, we're going through this to look at potential Trump ties, the whole Russia thing we're going to look at real quick, and then maybe some reactions, and then might be hopping on some games later. So stick around if you want to see that. Having a good time. Like I said, just taking a very quick break. Be right back. And we are back. Boom. Boom. Hopping into the special counsel's investigation. So, I believe this is section 1 of volume 1. What page are we on now? We're on page 19, so we'll come right back. So, we just read through this bit here. And now we are on to this bit right here. Perfect. On May 17, 2017, Deputy Attorney General Rod J. Rosenstein, then serving as acting Attorney General for the Russian investigation following the recusal of former Attorney General Jeff Sessions on March 2, 2016, appointed the special counsel, quote, to investigate Russian interference with the 2016 presidential election and related matters, end quote. Office of the Deputy Attorney General, order number 3915, 2017. A bunch of other stuff. Holy shit, a bunch of shit referenced. The acting Attorney General ordered the appointment of a special counsel, quote, in order to discharge the acting Attorney General's responsibility to provide supervision and management of the Department of Justice and to ensure a full and thorough investigation of the Russian government's efforts to interfere in the 2016 presidential election, end quote. Appointment order. Quote, the special counsel, end quote, the order stated, quote, is authorized to conduct the investigation confirmed by then FBI Director James B. Comey in testimony before the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence on March 20th, 2017, end quote, including, first, any links and or coordination between the Russian government and individuals associated with the campaign of President Donald Trump, and second, any matters that arose or may arise directly from the investigation, and third, any other matters within the scope of 28 CFR subsection 600.4a. Appointment Order B, section 600.4, affords the special counsel, quote, the authority to investigate and prosecute federal crimes committed in the course of and with the intent to interfere with the special counsel's investigations such as perjury, obstruction of justice, destruction of evidence, and intimidation of witnesses, end quote. The authority to investigate, quote, any matters that arose directly from the investigation, quote, covers similar crimes that may have occurred during the course of the FBI's confirmed investigation before the special counsel's appointment. Quote, if the special counsel believes it is necessary and appropriate, end quote, the order further provided, quote, the special counsel is authorized to prosecute federal crimes arising from the investigation of these matters, end quote. Finally, the acting attorney general made applicable, quote, section 600.4 through 600.10 of Title 28 of the Code of Federal Regulations, end quote. The acting attorney general further clarified the scope of the special counsel's investigatory authority in two subsequent memoranda. In memorandum dated August 2nd, 2017, A memorandum dated August 2nd, 2017, explained that the appointment order had been, quote, worded categorically in order to permit its public release without confirming specific investigations involving specific individuals, end quote. It then confirmed that the special counsel had been authorized since his appointment to investigate allegations that 3 Trump campaign officials, Carter Page, Paul Manafort, and George Papadopoulos, quote, committed a crime or crimes by colluding with Russian government officials with respect to the Russian government's efforts to interfere with the 2016 presidential election, end quote. The memorandum also confirmed the special counsel's authority to investigate certain other matters, including 2 additional sets of allegations involving Manafort, crimes arising from payments he received from the Ukrainian government, and crimes arising from his receipt of loans from a bank whose CEO was then seeking a position in the Trump administration, allegations that Papadopoulos committed a crime or crimes by acting as an unregistered agent of the Israeli government, and 4 that I know certain crowds that wouldn't fly with, and 4 sets of allegations involving Michael Flynn, the former national security advisor to President Trump. Pretty crazy. Crimes. Doing crimes. And then we're just taking these for our notes that we have for later. Make sure we're not going through this for nothing. I feel like that did too much. Yeah, that doubled it for whatever reason. I need to find a from. Where's the from a bank? There we go. There we go. Now we got it for our notes. On October 20th, 2017, the acting attorney general confirmed in a memorandum the special counsel's investigative authority as to several individuals and entities. First, quote, as part of a full and thorough investigation of the Russian government's efforts to interfere in the 2016 presidential election, end quote, the special counsel was authorized to investigate, quote, the pertinent activities of Michael Cohen, Richard Gates, Roger Stone. There are some redacted in here, 2 other redacted names, end quote. Quote, confirmation of the authorization to investigate such individuals, end quote, the memorandum stressed, quote, does not suggest that the special counsel has made a determination that any of them has committed a crime, end quote. Second, with respect to Michael Cohen, the memorandum recognized the special counsel's authority to investigate, quote, leads related to Cohen's establishment and use of essential consultants, LLC, to inter alia receive funds from Russian-backed entities, end quote. What is inter alia? I've seen that twice now. We're going to do some learning today. What are we here for if not some learning? Inter alia. Among other things. To Cohen's establishment and use of Essential Consultants, LLC, among other things. I like it. It's got to flow. Inter alia, receive funds from Russian-backed entities, end quote. Third, the memorandum memorialized the special counsel's authority, I think so, yeah, authority to investigate individuals and entities who were possibly engaged in, quote, jointly undertaken activity, end quote, with existing subjects of the investigation, including Paul Manafort. Finally, the memorandum described an FBI investigation opened before the special counsel's appointment into, quote, allegations that then Attorney General Jeff Sessions made false statements to the United States Senate, end quote, and confirmed the special counsel's authority to investigate that matter. The special counsel structured the investigation in view of his power and authority, quote, to exercise all investigative and prosecutorial functions of any United States attorney, end quote. Like a U.S. Attorney's Office, the Special Counsel's Office considered a range of classified and unclassified information available to the FBI in the course of the office's Russia investigation, and the office structured that work around evidence for possible use in prosecutions of federal crimes, assuming that one or more crimes were identified that warranted prosecution. There was substantial evidence immediately available to the special counsel at the inception of the investigation in May 2017 because the FBI had, by that time, already investigated Russian election interference for nearly 10 months. The special counsel's office exercised its judgment regarding what to investigate and did not, for instance, investigate every public report of a contact between the Trump campaign and Russian-affiliated individuals and entities. The office has concluded its investigation into links and coordination between the Russian government and individuals associated with the Trump campaign. Certain proceedings associated with the office's work remain ongoing. After consultation with the office of the deputy of of the Deputy Attorney General, the office has transferred responsibility for those remaining issues to other components of the Department of Justice and FBI. Appendix D lists those transfers. Two district courts confirmed the breadth of the special counsel's authority to investigate Russia election interference and links and/or coordination with the Trump campaign. In the course of conducting that investigation, the office periodically identified evidence of potential criminal activity that was outside the scope of the special counsel's authority established by the acting attorney general. Damn, periodically. Like, it's just wild. They were breaking the law like all the time. After consultation with the Office of the Deputy Attorney General, the office referred that evidence to appropriate law enforcement authorities, principally other components of the Department of Justice, and to the FBI. Appendix D summarizes those referrals. End of that section, looks like. To carry out the investigation and prosecution of the matters assigned to him, the special counsel assembled a team that, at its high point, included 19 attorneys, 5 of whom joined the office from private practice and 14 on detailed or assigned from other Department of Justice components. These attorneys were assisted by a filter team of department lawyers and FBI personnel who screened materials obtained via court process for privileged information before turning those materials over to investigators. A support staff of 3 paralegals on detail from the department's antitrust division, and an administrative staff of 9 responsible for budget, finance, purchasing, human resources, records, facilities, security, information technology, and administrative support. The special counsel attorneys and support staff were co-located with and I think I'm losing my mind. With and worked alongside. Gotcha. With and worked alongside approximately 40 FBI agents, intelligence analysts, forensic accountants, a paralegal, and professional staff assigned by the FBI to assist the special counsel's investigation. Those, quote, assigned, end quote, FBI employees remained under FBI supervision at all times. The matters on which they assisted were supervised by the special counsel. During its investigation, the office issued more than 2,800 subpoenas under the auspices of a grand jury sitting in the District of Columbia, executed nearly 500 search and seizure warrants, and obtained more than 230 orders for communication records under 18 U.S.C. subsection 2703D. Obtained almost 50 orders authorizing use of pen registers, made 13 requests to foreign governments pursuant to mutual legal assistance treaties, and interviewed approximately 500 witnesses, including almost 80 before a grand jury. Goddamn. So just talking about the scope of the investigation and what it takes. If anybody wonders why we read through these documents or anything like that, like if you ever wonder, like, hey, why does he sit here and he do this? Some of the things that I find important, especially as we get into this new regime, they are going to come out with their own investigations. They are going to come out with their own reports. And you better believe that if they do, and if it says something, and if they're saying something damning, I'm going to read through them. And I wonder how they're going to look in comparison to these ones, which always made sure to be even-handed, and you see the application of everything. I think the Jack Smith report was a perfect example of that. As you read through it, you see that they followed certain things because they could, and then they followed Department of Justice procedure, and then dropped it because of Department of Justice procedure. There's so much of that kind of illuminates how it was put together, why it was put together. You see a lot of that in these documents, and I love reading through the nitty-gritty so that we can go back and we can look, because when the new regime puts out theirs, I wonder what it's going to look like. I wonder if it's going to be so focused on being thorough, being impartial as you can be with something like this when you're looking into something so specific, and whether they'll be as curious about the Russia stuff. Whether we'll have a Department of Justice that's willing to go after Russian interference, or whether we're turning a blind eye for the next 4 years because they assume, oh, well, he's going to help us anyway. It's a interesting question, an interesting question for sure. Moving on. From its inception, the office recognized that its investigation could identify foreign intelligence and counterintelligence information relevant to the FBI's broader national security mission. FBI personnel who assisted the office established procedures to identify and convey such information to the FBI. The FBI's counterintelligence division met with the office regularly for that purpose for most of the office's tenure. For more than the past year, the FBI also embedded personnel at the office who did not work on the special counsel's investigation, but whose purpose was to review the results of the investigation and to send in writing summaries of foreign intelligence and counterintelligence information to FBI HQ and FBI field offices. Those communications and other correspondence between the office and the FBI contain information derived from the investigation, not all of which is contained in this volume. I was thinking about that, and I was like, they're probably not going to include a lot of that in here. This volume is a summary. It contains, in the office's judgment, that information necessary to account for the special counsel's prosecution and declination decisions and to describe the investigation's main factual results. Part 2. Russian, quote, active measures, end quote, social media campaign. Ooh, a little over an hour in, making my way downtown. Making our way through this document. Like I said, we got a little bit more to go over, talk about some Russian ties, what this does, might do some reactions, stuff like that, or might just end up hopping into the games because that is an option as well. But for now, we're plugging through the report. Thanks for stopping by. The first form of Russian election influence came principally from the Internet Research Agency LLC, the IRA, a Russian organization funded by Yevgeny Viktorovich Prigozhin and his companies he controlled, including Concord Management and Consulting LLC and Concord Catering, collectively Concord. The IRA conducted social media operations targeted at large U.S. audiences with the goal of sowing discord in the U.S. political system. These operations constituted, quote, active measures, end quote, a term that typically refers to operations conducted by Russian security services aimed at influencing the course of international affairs. Just looking down at the citations as we go through them, making sure we're not missing anything crazy in the footnotes. It is crazy though. It's pretty intentional. These things. It's pretty clear what was going on. Not to say that people would deny that Russia influences our elections, but my goodness, I don't know if people know how in our face it really is. The IRA and its employees began operations targeting the United States as early as 2014. Using fictitious U.S. personas, IRA employees operated social media accounts and group pages designed to attract U.S. audiences. These groups and accounts, which addressed divisive U.S. political and social issues, falsely claimed to be controlled by U.S. activists. Over time, these social media accounts became a means to reach large U.S. audiences. IRA employees traveled to the United States in mid-2014 on an intelligence gathering mission to obtain information and photographs for use in their social media posts. IRA employees posted derogatory information about a number of candidates in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. By early to mid-2016, IRA operations included supporting the Trump campaign and disparaging candidate Hillary Clinton. The IRA made various expenditures to carry out those activities, including buying political advertisements on social media in the names of U.S. persons and entities. Some IRA employees, posing as U.S. personas and without revealing their Russian association, I think the reason they include that is that's the crime of that, is that you would have to reveal that. I'm pretty sure, but I'm not certain. Communicated electronically with individuals associated with the Trump campaign and with other political activists to seek to coordinate political activities, including staging political rallies. The investigation did not identify evidence that any U.S. persons knowingly or intentionally coordinated with the IRA's interference operation. Where is that one? We might have to read into the IRA indictment then, if this has come out now, because I think what this is referencing, I've heard this, that basically Russia was staging both sides of rallies in the U.S. So they were like staging the protest and the counter protest, and they were like pitting us against each other, and it was just so prevalent. It's like, yeah, this is why you don't work with your enemies, because it doesn't benefit you. But what would Trump care about that? I think sometime here soon it's going to be a good point to break off into what we were talking about, because there's the talk of Trump being a Russian asset is what we're hoping to get into here in a little bit. So it may be a good little segue here shortly. But we are about an hour and a half in, so we got about 2 hours left, maybe 2.5 hours left roughly. Still want to get some games in, have some entertaining stuff here at the end. Make sure it's not all doom and gloom. But yeah, feel free to like, follow, comment along, or if you watch afterwards, if you watch on YouTube, we really appreciate you, because most everything gets posted there afterwards as well. We keep plugging along with the Mueller Report. By the end of the 2016 U.S. election, the IRA had the ability to reach millions of U.S. persons through their social media accounts. Multiple IRA-controlled Facebook groups and Instagram accounts had hundreds of thousands of U.S. participants. IRA-controlled Twitter accounts separately had tens of thousands of followers, including multiple U.S. political figures who retweeted IRA-created content. Holy shit. And this is what it was years ago. What is it now? Much worse, I'm sure. Not sure. Pretty darn sure, though. In November 2017, a Facebook representative testified that Facebook had identified 470 IRA-controlled Facebook accounts that collectively made 80,000 posts between January 2015 and August 2017. Facebook estimated that IRA reached as many as 126 million persons through its Facebook accounts. Not all those are Americans, whatever, but holy shit. Think about that outreach. It's insane. In January 2018, Twitter announced that it had identified 3,814 IRA-controlled Twitter accounts and notified approximately 1.4 million people Twitter believed may have been in contact with an IRA-controlled account. Holy shit. That's a lot of influence. And they just do it by pitting our main issues against one another, which is wild. That may actually be a good place to stop it, because right now we have the structure of the IRA, and then it looks like this is going to go into quite a bit of redacted information. Like, if you can see here, if you're watching along with us, quite a bit of this case hasn't come out yet. So let's see if we can get... And we'll do some homework for next time. I'm just going to slide this over so we have it right next to the report, because that's going to be what we're hopping on for next time. And then we'll change it up a little bit. We'll do a little bit less dry stuff here, but let's go over. We do have a brief overview of everything that we were just going through. So we'll stop at this section A here, the structure of the IRA, so we can look at some of the findings from the Mueller report. So the special counsel investigation uncovered extensive criminal activity. So when you hear Russia, or it's all a scam, here's some of the things that they found. The investigation produced 37 indictments, 7 guilty pleas or convictions, and compelling evidence that the president obstructed justice on multiple occasions. Mueller also uncovered and referred 14 criminal matters to other components of the Department of Justice. Trump associates repeatedly lied to investigators about their contacts with Russians, and President Trump refused to answer questions about his efforts to impede federal proceedings and influence the testimony of witnesses. A statement signed by over 1,000 former federal prosecutors concluded that if any other American engaged in the same efforts to impede federal proceedings the way that Trump did, they would likely be indicted for multiple charges of obstruction of justice. It's crazy. It's almost like you should charge people when they break crimes. Russia engaged in extensive attacks on the U.S. election system in 2016. Oh, really? Let's read up. Russian interference in the 2016 election was, quote, sweeping and systemic, end quote. Major attack avenues included a social media, quote, information warfare, end quote, campaign that, quote, favored, quote, candidate Trump, and the hacking of Clinton campaign-related databases and release of stolen materials through Russian-created entities and the cowards at WikiLeaks. Russia also targeted databases in many states related to administering elections, gaining access to information for millions of registered voters. We haven't even gotten to that bit yet. Holy shit. Crazy. The investigation, quote, identified numerous links between the Russian government and the Trump campaign, end quote, and established that the Trump campaign, quote, showed interest in WikiLeaks releases of documents and welcomed their potential damage to candidate Clinton. Potential to damage candidate Clinton, end quote. In 2015 and 2016, Michael Cohen pursued a hotel residence project in Moscow on behalf of Trump while he was campaigning for president. Then candidate Trump personally signed a letter of intent. Senior members of the Trump campaign, including Paul Manafort, Donald Trump Jr., and Jared Kushner, took a June 9th, 2016 meeting with Russian nationals at Trump Tower, New York, after outreach from an intermediary informed Trump Jr. that the Russians had derogatory information on Clinton that was, quote, part of Russia and its government's support for Mr. Trump, end quote. Beginning in June 2016, a Trump associate, quote, forecast to senior Trump campaign officials that WikiLeaks would release information damaging to candidate Clinton, end quote. A section of the report that remains heavily redacted suggests that Roger Stone was this associate and that he had significant contacts with the campaign about WikiLeaks. What a piece of shit. The report described multiple occasions where Trump associates lied to investigators about Trump associate contacts with Russia. Trump associates George Papadopoulos, Rick Gates, Michael Flynn, and Michael Cohen all admitted that they made false statements to federal investigators or to Congress about their contacts. In addition, Roger Stone faces trial this fall for obstruction of justice, 5 counts of making false statements, and 1 count of witness tampering. And then remember what happened at the end of here. I don't know if at the writing of this it had already happened. Pretty sure Roger Stone just got a blanket pardon for this. He just, I'm not going to snitch, and then got himself a pardon. Same with Paul Manafort. I think it was the same thing. Just did fucked up shit, and they found out about it, and then it just didn't matter. Crazy. Maybe looking back on it, did you think Michael Cohen think he made the wrong decision by snitching out? If you just stay loyal, maybe you get the pardon, and then you get to come back in a couple years. The report described multiple occasions when Trump associates lied. Oh, we already did that one. The report contains no evidence that any Trump campaign official reported their contacts with Russia or WikiLeaks to U.S. law enforcement authorities during the campaign or presidential transition, despite public reports on Russian hacking starting in June 2016 and candidate Trump's... Whoa, that just jumped. Candidate Trump's August 2016 intelligence briefing warning him that Russia was seeking to interfere in the election. So he knew about it, didn't disclose it. Of course not. He's a fucking liar. The report raised questions about why Trump associates and then candidate Trump repeatedly asserted Trump had no connections to Russia. Why would you say that? Why would you say such a thing? Special Counsel Mueller declined to exonerate President Trump and instead detailed multiple episodes in which he engaged in obstructive conduct. So saying that you obstructed, and there are multiple times where anybody else would just be held in, like you'd be taken away, like you'd get arrested for this stuff. You can't obstruct investigations this way. But here we go. The Mueller report states that if the special counsel's office felt they could clear the president of wrongdoing, they would have said so. Instead, the report explicitly states that it, quote, does not exonerate, end quote, the president, and explains that the office of special counsel, quote, accepted, end quote, the Department of Justice policy that a sitting president cannot be indicted. So they didn't even say he didn't do anything wrong. So the people who say the Mueller report did nothing. The Mueller report details multiple episodes in which there is evidence that the president obstructed justice. The pattern of conduct and the manner in which the president sought to impede investigations, including through one-on-one meetings with senior officials, is damning to the president. 5 episodes of obstructive conduct stand out as being particularly serious. We're just going to bow. so that we have the points where they can be referenced. In June 2017, President Trump directed White House counsel Don McGahn to order the firing of special counsel after press reports that Mueller was investigating the president for obstruction of justice. 12 months later, Trump asked McGahn to falsely refute press accounts reporting this directive and create a false paper record on this issue, all of which McGahn refused to do. Holy shit, that's wild. After National Security Advisor Michael Flynn was fired in February 2017 for lying to FBI investigators about his contacts with Russian Ambassador Kislyak, Trump cleared his office for a one-on-one meeting with then FBI Director James Comey and asked Comey to, quote, let Flynn go, end quote. He also asked then Deputy National Security Advisor K.T. McFarland to draft an internal memo saying Trump did not direct Flynn to call Kislyak, which McFarland did not do because she did not know whether that was true. In July 2017, the president directed former campaign manager Corey Lewandowski to instruct the Attorney General to limit Mueller's investigation, a step the report asserted, quote, was intended to prevent further investigative scrutiny of the president's and his campaign's conduct, end quote. In 2017 and 2018, the president asked the Attorney General to, quote, unrecuse, end quote, himself from the Mueller inquiry actions from which a, quote, reasonable inference, end quote, could be made that, quote, the president believed that an unrecused attorney general would play a protective role and could shield the president from the ongoing Russia investigation, end quote. So if it's a witch hunt, why would you need protection? It's all fake, right? Of course not. The report raises questions about whether the president, by and through his private attorneys, floated the possibility of pardons for the purpose of influencing the cooperation of Flynn, Manafort, and an unnamed person with law enforcement. Holy shit. So he's just literally offering pardons. It's like, hey, by the way, if you don't snitch on me, I can always pardon you. You don't snitch, then they try and hold you, I pardon you out. Just don't snitch on me, and I can stay in power. Fuck me running. This is the worst. Congress needs to continue investigating and assessing elements of the Mueller report. The redactions of the Mueller report appear to conceal the extent to which the Trump campaign had advanced knowledge of the release of hacked emails by WikiLeaks. For instance, redactions conceal content of discussions that the report states occurred between Trump, Cohen, and Manafort in July 2016, shortly after WikiLeaks released hacked emails. The report further notes, quote, Trump told Gates that more releases of damaging information would be coming, end quote, but redacts the contextual information around that statement. A second issue the report does not examine is the fact that the president was involved in conduct that was the subject of a case the special counsel referred to the Southern District of New York, which the report notes, quote, ultimately led to the conviction of Cohen in the Southern District of New York for campaign finance offenses related to payments he made at the direction of the president, end quote. I think that's the Stormy Daniels stuff. The report also redacts in entirety its discussion of 12 of the 14 matters Mueller referred to other law enforcement authorities. Further, the report details non-cooperation with the inquiry by the president, including refusing requests by the special counsel for an interview, providing written responses that the office of the special counsel considered, quote, incomplete, end quote, and, quote, imprecise, end quote, and that involved the president stating on, quote, more than 30 occasions that he, another quote, does not recall, end that quote, or another quote, remember, end that quote, or have an independent recollection, end all quotes. I'm just going to rip through that again without the quotes. Providing written responses that the Office of Special Counsel considered incomplete and imprecise, and that involved the president stating on more than 30 occasions that he does not recall or remember or have an independent recollection, end quote. So ways that he obstructed This, I think, is important. We're going to go through the rest of the report, of course. I just think at the end of the first day going through it, it's nice to get an idea of what it's like. This is what he was trying the first go around, and he had a couple people that were working with him. Now he will try even more stuff. So he tried to interfere in elections before, during, and after. He tried to obstruct the investigation into how he fucked around with elections or tried to fuck around with elections and handed out pardons for people to not snitch on him. He had the campaign finance stuff, which was an election interference one. Everybody talks about it like it's the Stormy Daniels payment. No, you're trying to interfere with an election in an illegal way. So much of this stuff is, I think, important as you start shining the light on it and we see the current actions, the actions in 2020 with the fake electors scheme, not just January 6th, but the fake electors scheme was really, really important to focus on as well. And I think people kind of get lost in the sauce on that one. It's easy. There's a lot of sauce going on right now, but the big one about that was he attempted to steal that election. He tried to interfere with this first one. What is he now going to do when he's surrounded by more loyalists, when there are less people to blow the whistle, when there is more control consolidated with him than ever before? What new way is he going to try to undermine elections? We have the special elections coming in April, and then we have elections obviously coming in 2026. Are these going to be free and fair elections? I think these are really important questions to have.